Da na 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 na. Simply.
Hi, I'm Ann and this is Ann's Keep It Simple. Today we're doing a recipe that for some of you may be a little bit intimidating, but it's so easy. You can do it. You just got to follow through with the recipe. You can stop the recording if you need to, work at something a little bit more. It's very easy to do. It's affordable. It's something that we use in our family for snacks or hors d'oeuvres, or I make it with stir fry, which you can find that recipe on annskeepitsimple.com also. It does use pantry items, but there's a few things that you would have to get at the grocery store specifically for this recipe. So it's about $5 and it serves about 4 to 6 people depending on if you're using it for a side dish or an entree or an hors d'oeuvre. So you can, if you're doing hors d'oeuvres, we'll make the packages a little bit smaller and we'll get to that more when we get into the cooking process. It's called dim sum today. Dim sum is just another term for small bites or little pocket, little tastes or something. It is Asian. They do make this with ground chicken, ground pork, ground beef, whatever you want to use ground meat wise, you can. I am today using ground pork. You can get it at your supermarket. It's very inexpensive. 1 pound will go a long way with this dish. And you want to make sure it's just plain ground pork. No sausage, no seasoning or anything like that, because we're actually adding Asian seasoning to it today. So we've got the 1 package of egg roll wraps, a half of a 5-ounce can of water chestnuts. They usually come in the little cans and it's about 5 ounces, 4.5 ounces, but you're only going to use a half a can of that for this recipe for 1 pound of ground beef. And you've got our ground pork. You've got the 1 pound of ground pork, a 1/4 teaspoon or so of each spice. Sage, ginger, and garlic. Salt and pepper to taste, and I'm going to also add chopped green onions because that's what I have on hand today. If you want to use minced dried onion, that's perfectly fine too. Remember, cooking, you've got to keep it fun, you've got to keep it simple. Whatever you have on hand that day, during the week or whatever, use it, okay? You can change it up however you want. This is just kind of the idea. So we'll get started with that today. I have a regular size stock pot on the stove. You do need a pot with a lid. So that is something that is part of the recipe, so you really need to have something that you can cover with a lid on it. This size of stock pot, I've used 4 cups of water in the bottom. Now, I only know that it's 4 cups of water because for the cooking process, it's really going to steam. You're not going to be cooking anything specifically separate or browning or anything like that. Those terms are all on my website, annskeepitsimple.com too. And in the pantry, the items that are read on the recipe, that's all things you should have on hand anyways, if you take the advice from the website. This is a little steamer. These things fold up, and store. You put them together, they come in pieces, and they have little feet on there. And I know that the feet on this little steamer, it's like $4, this thing, and you will use and use and use and use and use it. You can steam vegetables, you can steam pot stickers, you can steam dim sum, you can steam, dumplings, Asian dumplings. You can do a lot of things with this. If you don't let it intimidate you, just because it's not something that you might use on a regular basis or anything. Very affordable, very cheap. Stick it in the dishwasher. It's stainless steel, comes out, it's perfect every time. I have put the 4 cups of water in here because I know that up to my feet, it will cover enough of the bottom of the pan that nothing's going to burn, but it's enough water to steam with the lid on it when we get to the cooking process. So when I put this in here, you want to look really closely. It sits down on there, but with the feet on the bottom of the steamer, you don't want the steamer sitting in the water. So there's no water that's come up through the steamer, okay? You want to make sure that your product, the dim sum is not going to be sitting in water, particularly. Just enough water on the bottom to steam it as we start the cooking process. Alright, so let's get started on the recipe. I'm using egg roll wraps. Now these are usually a couple dollars at the grocery store. You can get the little ones that are already cut in 4s, and they're smaller, like wonton wraps. They're the exact same thing, only you get per weight you get more if you buy the egg roll wrap packages, and we use enough of these for mini egg rolls or dim sum, or that we usually go through a whole package. This is a 1 pound package, and I just cut up my own when I make dim sum. So it's, you know, stretch a dollar wherever you can. And these are found at any supermarket, anywhere. So I only use about half of a pack because I know I'm not going to use all of the big wraps, because I'm going to cut them into 4s, you remember. So, and we make, essentially we make little purses. So I'll save the other ones. If I need more, I can cut more, but I'll save the rest of them because we'll make some egg rolls and stuff out of those too. My family is really good about adventurous eating, so we're never at a loss for trying something new. All right, I just cut that in half, fold it over, and cut it in half again. And you're gonna have even squares, just like that. I mean, that's all it is. You just cut them up. And this essentially is what you purchased at the store called wonton wrappers. You just did it yourself. And saved a few pennies. So, all right, getting the mixture. I am using 1 pound of ground pork. Now this is very affordable. Ground pork, ground chicken, whatever you decide to use in this recipe. Ground turkey also works. You just have to make sure that it's pretty lean meat and everything else, but it's just plain. It doesn't have any sausage seasoning in it. That's not really that easy to say. Just plain ground pork. So get that in there, and then I'm gonna go ahead before I touch the meat and everything else, just because I know I'm gonna have to have these veggies anyways. Today I'm putting in the fresh chives. I'm using the green part of the onion because pork is very mild anyways. As long as it doesn't have any seasonings and stuff in it, it's a very mild meat. So you don't want to overpower it with white onion. White onion, even if you cook it, is very strong usually and pungent. So I'm using just the green parts of the chive, or what we call chives, or the green parts of the onions, little green onions. And I'm just chopping those up pretty fine. And I'm going to go ahead and mix those in with the ground pork. And I'm getting up to the whites, so I'll save those for later because I know I'll have another recipe I can use those in. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those fresh, chopped up, in with the pork. And then we're going to do the seasoning. Now, mind you, still haven't touched the meat because you are going to be mixing this by hand. I've already chopped up a half of the 5-ounce can of the water chestnuts. You can chop these up by hand. I happen to have a miniature little food processor that just chops everything up. I use it for olives and water chestnuts. Depending on the recipe that I make, it's just a lot quicker, but you can chop them up by hand. That's fine too. Just make sure that they're pretty chopped up or minced up pretty good. Because you want everything to be, it's going to go in a little pocket with the wrappers, and it's going to be about a 2-bite size for everything. So, and I've already chopped those up, so I'll go ahead and add those to it. Be careful of your blade. You don't want to hurt yourself there. Okay, now the seasonings. Pork takes quite a bit of salt. It can take on, like a potato or a noodle sometimes, can take on a little bit more salt because of the mildness of the meat. So I just sprinkle on some pepper there, or some salt there, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of pepper in the palm of my hand because we're going to salt and pepper it once it's in the pot, and it is going to steam, so it'll take a little bit more salt that way too. Ground ginger, I put 1/4 teaspoon, but essentially I don't really measure it out, but you don't. Ginger and sage are 2 very strong seasonings. So just in the bottom of my hand I've got, you know, this ground ginger, and then I'm going to do the same amount for the sage. And if you want to at this point, you can even use poultry seasoning. Excuse me, sneeze. Those are good spices. Same amount for the sage. And I'll sprinkle just a little bit of poultry seasoning, which also has sage and ginger and everything in it. It's got a little bit of onion, garlic, salt in there, so it just brings out the flavor. And even though it is poultry seasoning, it works really well with plain pork. So salt and pepper, we've got everything in there. We've got our veggies in there. Woo. I'm telling you what, those seasonings are good. Good stuff. At this point, my hands have been washed already, but I'm going to mix this all together. And I'm gonna turn on the stove on pretty low, just to get the water starting to heat up. Now, like I said, in this size of a pan, I put 4 cups in there. The water is not over the steamer, it's just sitting right below the steamer. The steamer is sitting above the water. So you can start heating up that water. Now, it's not a whole lot of water, so it won't take long to heat up. So we're gonna go ahead and mix up the mixture and start making our little purses. And then once you fill, I just place them in here round and around and around. And once you fill this up then, and you use up all your meat mixture, just go ahead, put the lid on it and cook it through. So let's show you how we get one of these done. Just one of the wrappers, they're pretty thin, so I'll mix this up real good first. And see, this is where you use your hand. I keep one hand for mixing, one hand dry and clean because I'm touching other food. So I'm just gonna mix this up by hand. It's just like making hamburgers or something if you mix any seasonings or anything into your hamburger before you put them on the grill. It's the same concept. And it smells so good already. All those seasonings in there, and we've got the water chestnuts and the onions in there. Okay, it's pretty incorporated. Now, like most ground meat, you don't want to over mix this, people, because you'll make it tough. So all you want to do is just incorporate everything really good. You take the little wrapper, take a little pinch. If you're making these for hors d'oeuvres, I usually go by a rule of thumb that it's a 1 bite. So if it's for hors d'oeuvres, they're going to be a little bit smaller, and you're going to end up with quite a few of them in the pan, like that. You just pinch the tops together like that, 4 sides, stick it right in there, and it'll hold together like a little purse, okay? And you just continue filling this around. Now, if you're making them for meals or an entree and you have stir fry with it or something like that, take about twice that much, okay? You're still gonna have plenty of room in there, and you'll have less of them number-wise in the pan, but it's more of a 2 bite, like a meatball is what it would come out to, about the size of a meatball. Just pinch that all together, stick it in there, and you just keep working around and around until you get them all filled together. And you can use this. They can be touching each other and everything else, but you don't want to pack them too tightly because you do want them to steam while they're in there. It's a very short cooking process because steam cooks very quickly. Alright, let me keep filling these up. I'm using about a meatball size because my family likes them with stir fry or even just by themselves with some soy sauce. It's already got veggies in there. Kids love these because they're fun, for one thing, and they really are healthy. I mean, they're a healthy dish. So you've got veggies in there. Kids don't even know they're eating their veggies, let me tell you. So now that I've got a few of these made, I'll show you real quick here. See how I've got them in the pan. It's okay for them to be touching. You just don't want to pack them so tight that you can't see, something between them, because they'll steam throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and finish making up these meatball size little purses and just stick them in there and until I run out of the meat mixture and everything else, and then we will cover it and turn the heat up just a little bit and have them steam for just a few minutes, and we'll be back as soon as they're steamed. Alright, we're back. It's been about 12 or 13 minutes or so to cook the dim sum in here, and you're going to have it steaming, so be careful when you take the lid off because you can burn yourself pretty bad. I've had it on medium heat ever since I finished packing it. You can see everything's packed in there pretty good together, and they are touching, and that's fine. They'll steam just fine that way, but you have to have the lid on there and cover it, and it cooks very quickly, so it's just, like I said, a few minutes. I'll go ahead and turn that off. You can let them sit up a little bit before you start dipping them out, but you have to be careful. It's going to be hot. And I like to use a spoon only because they do stick a little bit to the steamer, but it doesn't matter. This isn't necessarily a pretty contest. The taste will be more than worth it anyways. And I just go ahead and scrape those off with the wrappers and everything else that usually come out, and you serve those up just like that. And if you let them sit up just a little bit, they will come out a little bit better. But since I want to show you how to plate these up, I'm not going to wait for them to cool a little bit. They do stick together just a little bit. There we go. And you just plate them up, you know, it's about the size of a meatball right there. You can serve these up with some fresh veggies or on the side with some stir-fry noodles, rice noodles, or whatever. A little bit of spicy mustard and some soy sauce. It's just that simple. It's already got veggies in there too. So can't get much simpler than that, guys. Try some dim sum.